Okay, hi, good morning. South by Southwest Day 2. This is so exciting to be here. I don't know about you guys, but this is my first big event since pre-pandemic. So I'm like overwhelmed and excited and just want to talk with you all day. I've had so many cups of coffee. Hi, I'm Natalie Bryne, and this panel rocks. So really quickly, can I have a show of hands of how many people are familiar with the hunger stats of no? Okay, great. So I am going to start there because this is a really important thing to frame. Where we are today, food waste, hunger, is astounding. It was a bad situation pre-pandemic, and now we're dealing with, let's see here, 100 million people around the world do not have enough to eat. And we're gonna just talk about the US mainly right now today. We throw away more food than any other country, 30 to 40%. Feeding America says the average American family throws away $1,600 in produce every year. And yet, right down the street from here, we have hunger. Right down the street from most cities that are thriving from events like this, we have 1 in 8 who are hungry. So today we're going to talk about something really inspiring, which is people who are making a very big difference, whether they're innovating or leading this inside of their companies and working across the world on these issues. I am very excited by this female-led, really, I wanted to say badass, can I say that? Badass panel. So I'd love to start by just a quick intro, if you don't mind. Kick it off. Tell us who you are and what brings you into this issue today.
Hey everyone, my name is Maricel Ruiz, and I come here from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm still cold, so I don't know what's going on. But I'm one of the founders of Hyfé Foods. We make fungi flour by upcycling byproducts from food manufacturing. I'm talking about flour that tastes exactly like wheat flour but has no refined carbs and a ton of protein. We're looking at waste as a gold mine when it comes to making affordable and super healthy food.
Hi everybody, I'm Denise Osterhughes and I work for Kroger. I actually have 2 hats, so you may know us as the grocery retailer of many names depending on what market you live in. But we have about 2,800 supermarkets across the country. We also have manufacturing facilities and our own distribution and fleet. So for Kroger, I manage our environmental, social, and governance strategy, so our ESG strategy and all of the topics that kind of fall under sustainability and social impact, and I also have philanthropy. So the other hat is the one I'm wearing today, which is president of the Kroger Co. Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation, which is a nonprofit public charity we stood up about 4 years ago, specifically to address that intersection of food security and food waste, and really try to make a difference in any way we can. Philanthropically, we have an innovation fund to drive catalytic capital to food tech innovators, and that has been really a wonderful and exciting part of my job. So really happy to be here. Glad you are too.
Good morning, Jasmine Crow, founder and CEO of Goodr. We are based in Atlanta, Georgia, and we really sit at the intersection of solving food waste and hunger. So excited to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Maricel. I'm originally from Costa Rica, but I live in San Francisco, and I'm the founder of Campeotto. We're working on making coffee without the coffee beans so that we can create a drink that's equally delicious and gives us the same energy, but with a fraction of the environmental footprint in terms of carbon emissions and water use.
To give a little bit more context, I run a social impact and strategy and communications firm, Blank Space, and we worked with client Weight Watchers this year to create the Healthy Living Coalition of 30 brands coming together on these issues. And very closely, you'll hear a couple people have talked about zero waste, zero hunger. That is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 2 that we're all working towards. So I wanted to make a mention because it's important that we think about our work as it ladders up to the macro. So with that, I'm going to dive into all the good stuff, and I want to start with you, Denise, and talking about ecosystems. I think when a lot of people think about a company like Kroger, they're thinking, oh, Denise has a dream job, she's just sitting in there making magic, and it's really a city. She's thinking about employees and how they're interacting. She's thinking about supply chains, advocacy partners, stakeholders, the whole machine of this city. And I'd love if you would talk a little bit about that and speak into some of the programs. And then I already have a million places we'll go.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So to be clear, I think I have a dream job. So I do
Yes.
love it. It's amazing. It's really kind of a dream to be able to work on topics of such importance to people and our planet. So on behalf of Kroger, I lead an ESG team who are all women and rock stars as well. So very committed, passionate people. We do, let's not forget our customers. So the other stakeholder that we always try to put first are our customers. And many of our customers are on a budget. And so keep maintaining access to fresh and affordable healthy food is a top priority for us. So, and that's true, we also have a lot of people and workers in our global supply chain and who are in the food production side of the world. So we think about all of them. And then we also balance that with what is right from a sustainability perspective. We have carbon emission reduction targets, we have sustainable packaging goals, in addition to our commitments to advance human rights for workers everywhere. So yes, there's a lot of, it is definitely a systems and set of issues that are all very interrelated and interconnected. So it is a challenging job to think of what solutions could possibly look like, but we need innovators like the other ladies here who are coming up with new ideas, new products to really take us to the next level.
And we spoke a little bit about, thinking about margins and moving the needle. And, when you're thinking at Kroger about something that's 10 years out and you're setting some of these really big goals for the company, how are you measuring those decisions against those goals and making sure that you're staying on target?
Yeah, we actually have if you look at our ESG report, you can see 4 pages of tables on our performance metrics and how we're doing on our goals. We have a lot of goals. And for example, we've been working within our own operations to reduce food waste by directing as much fresh surplus food as possible to those in our communities who can use it. So we have food waste generation goals in our retail business, and then we also have waste diversion goals, et cetera. So the other thing to note is in 2017, when we introduced Zero Hunger, Zero Waste, our goal was to provide 3 billion meals to our communities. And so far, after just wrapping up 2021, we're already at 2.3 billion. And that reflects food and charitable dollars that we direct to our communities to unlock greater food access. But the other thing to mention is we have our innovation fund through the foundation, and that has directed, I think, over $3 million in funding to innovators with great ideas. So that's really, I think, the core of what we're talking about here today, too, is what is the future and what ideas do we need to help solve this problem.
That is exactly right. Thank you for helping me with the segue, because we think about the old guard working on these issues, and then we have these innovators and scientists and entrepreneurs sitting here with us that we're going to dive in. And I want to start with Jasmine and Goodr, because she has really got me thinking when she says things like hunger is a logistics problem, and shifting from the idea that delivery and opportunity and reaching these food desert populations is something that we can actually do. So I would love for you to speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things. So when you say the old guard, I think that's a really great topic. It's a problem when you think of innovation, because so many people are married to the old way that they're not open to new ways. And so as someone who's really been working on this problem since 2016, I started Goodr feeding people that were experiencing homelessness, living unsheltered on the streets. I had an event called Sunday Soul, and it was a pop-up restaurant. I would make these menus and allow people to sit down and feel like they were dining at a restaurant, even though that they were experiencing homelessness. And so I've really worked in this space for a long time, and I understand the perils that people that are living on the marginal poverty line face, what ends up happening is the old guard is, this is the way we've always done it. We have a partnership with Feeding America. We're going to donate food this way. And what we end up seeing is, if you've always done it this way, how are we going to ever get better changes if you're going to continue to do what you've always done? And that's something that we have faced, specifically myself at Goodr. It's just really hard. There's a lot of gatekeepers that aren't open to new ideas. And, you know, we've just continued to do them on our own. It's just like, hey, if we can't get the funding, if we can't get the partners, let's try and make these things happen. So innovation for us looks like Goodr has now what we call supplemental grocery stores. We have 2, we're actually opening about 15 over the next year. And our goal is not to be a Kroger, but our goal is that we think, to your point, Nancy, that hunger is not an issue of scarcity. If you just said we waste more food than any other country, it really is about logistics. It's about how do you get food that's going to waste directly into the hands of people that need it. And so what we've done is now we build grocery stores inside of Title I middle schools and inside of low-income senior housing communities. And we allow those families and children in there to be able to go in and get food whenever they need it. And now what we've done is we've turned that issue of I live in a food desert on its head. Now we have 13-year-old kids that can say, Mom, I'm going to bring home dinner tonight, and they can go into one of our grocery stores and receive food access for free. The same thing with seniors. So many seniors receiving anywhere from $16 to $24 a month on food stamps. And I think all of us know inflation is crazy. Like the cost of eggs today versus what it was 5 years ago. What hasn't changed for seniors? Their Social Security hasn't gone up. Their disability hasn't gone up. So the struggle is even worse for them. So it is really about, you know, being innovative. And I think what corporations have to do is be open to new ideas and not just say that they are, but actually really stand on that and be open to working with new startups and new innovations. And also, too, I have to say women and founders of color, because it's even harder for us to not only get against the old guard, but also not look like the old guard as well. So it's something that I think we have a lot of ways to go, but we're continuing to innovate, and I'll talk about some of our other innovations later.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's something that's on all of our minds is how are we, you know, when we talk about the new guard, putting new leaders, new voices, new ideas, and also what's so inspiring about your story, I mean, there's so much, but the idea that you were on the ground watching the issue firsthand, working with homeless, and I think that all of us, no matter where we are in this country, are experiencing that. I live in LA, and it is an epidemic right now. And thinking about, okay, how are we going to feed this one population? But then you actually build an ecosystem off that. And not only are you doing this now in Atlanta, but you're spreading it nationwide. So speak a little bit about your expansion and growth there.
Yeah, Goodr right now is currently operating in 19 markets. Our number 2 and 3 markets are Denver, Colorado, and Dallas, Texas, with closely following Washington, D.C. We have a real big focus on expanding throughout Texas. We are opening grocery stores in, really, in my opinion, the hardest hit areas. So we have 2 that will be opening in Mississippi, where 20% of the population is food insecure. We also are opening 2 grocery stores in Birmingham, Alabama, 9 grocery stores in Denver, Colorado. We just now will be soon announcing a partnership with a really big company. And yeah, because I felt like if I said what kind of company they were, people would know.
You heard it here
so,
first,
yeah.
South by.
Yeah, and so that'll be expanding the work as well. But yeah, our service on the food recovery, Nancy, is available nationwide in 216 cities. And that is because we work with partners like DoorDash and Uber Eats and Roadie to move food from a business to a nonprofit in real time.
I mean, think about that. We're living in a time when we're delivering everything to our house. And just down the street, people are living in food deserts. They do not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So thinking about our apps and our tech-savvy, innovative lifestyles and how we can really translate this to fight hunger is essential. And that's what's so great about South by and everyone who's here, because you guys are on. We have NFT crypto conversations happening ever. Let's NFT crypto hunger. I just said it. Let's do it. Next year, I'm coming back. Okay. So on that.
Can I mention one thing?
Yes.
I would just say I agree that logistics is a key issue. And I think for our side of the world, we just announced a new fulfillment center that will serve Austin, actually, in San Antonio. So as we open up more fulfillment centers and as you start to see more little Kroger delivery trucks on the road, our hope is that that will help unlock food access as well, and that we can suddenly, we are able to deliver truly anywhere within a market. And so a food desert, hopefully the dream is there would be no food deserts because everyone will have access to food, whether it's food for purchase, using your SNAP dollars or benefits, or also charitable food. So agree, and our, we know, Jasmine, we would say we want an inclusive charitable food system. Like we need everyone. It's not one organization or another. We need everybody. So really love that you guys are expanding. That's awesome.
Oh, and thank you for sharing that news. That's so exciting. Okay, Michelle, I'm coming for you now. I love Michelle's background. She was in the trenches of looking at oil wastewater and how we refine it and think about taking it and making it something that is not destroying the planet, and went and did this in food. Can you please kind of break down the whole fungi mystery for us?
Yeah, so everybody knows fungi definitely as mushrooms, right? And we know that fungi are nature's decomposers, so they're these little machines that literally take material from one form and convert it to a different form. And so we're kind of looking at fungi as a way to say, hey, maybe food that is wasted that looks like an ugly apple that doesn't maybe make it to the grocery store shelf, you could take it, you could eat it, but what about food that is wasted in the form of water? Think about when you open a can of peas, right? That can has a ton of water in there. That water is safe to eat, it is packed full of sugar, and the way that we clean water is literally when it goes down the drain, it goes to a wastewater treatment plant, we get bacteria and fungi to go into the water and eat the sugars and the nutrients, and then what does that do? It cleans the water, and number two, it makes this fungi and bacteria grow. And then what happens after? You take all of that fungi and bacteria that you just created, you dump it in the landfill. And so think about next time you drink a beer, you drink some wine, you open a can of food, anything that touches water in food is going to end up in the landfill because of how we treat water. And so we're looking at fungi and we're saying like, okay, cool, we're cleaning water with fungi, but what if we make clean, easy to eat water get cleaned with edible fungi like an oyster mushroom? We already eat that, right? And so yeah, that's kind of how we're taking these sugars that are wasted in a dissolved state and we're using fungi to like upcycle it and make it more available to us.
You're touching on something that is not spoken about enough, and that's how climate and land and the environment is connected to the hunger crisis. And I think that you're problem solving from a couple different verticals. And hopefully too, did you bring your sample product that you show? Oh my gosh. Okay, I got a sneak peek, guys. She has this awesome little sample product of the flour. Will you tell them what they're missing out? Because I feel like it's going to be in everyone's homes pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, the flour just looks like wheat flour. It tastes exactly the same. It looks white. It looks like powder. And the thing about the nutrition and the hunger part is that when you look at the nutritional profile of fungi, it doesn't have any refined carbs. Think about how, like, now connecting to health, one of the other epidemics that most of us in this room are probably affected by, but inflammatory chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease, some cancers, all of that is connected at the root to what type of foods we're eating and the type of inflammation our bodies are going through chronically every single day of our lives, right, with those glucose spikes. Why does that happen? All of the foods that are the most culturally ingrained in our daily lives that we're never gonna walk away from have some type of refined starch in them. But that's because the ingredients that are available to us right now are grains, nuts, legumes. For all of those, you have to strip out the protective fiber casing to make those starches into flour. But what if we start looking at flour as something that doesn't need to be stripped? It just needs to be ground in its full form. Then our body is able to really digest it in a way that's slow and isn't inflammatory.
I mean, I am so excited. We're still going, guys. Maricel, how many people here had to have a cup of coffee before this 9 a.m. panel. Yes, I've had 3. So, so we need to talk about this. Coffee is what fuels America, guys. And I think it's something that not a lot of people have been tackling from the idea of sustainability and health. And Maricel, take us into this. And you come from Costa Rica, so this is part of your lifeblood there.
Yeah. So coffee is one of the most consumed products in the world, but when we look into how it's made, it's also one of the most polluting products. So we create around 17 kilograms of CO2 equivalents for 1 kilogram of coffee. And to make a cup of coffee, we need around 140 liters of water. Without getting into the really complicated supply chain and logistics that it takes to grow a plant in a place like Costa Rica, get it dried, and then fly it all the way to somewhere like Seattle to get it roasted, to then send it to New York or Austin so that people can consume it. So coffee has the problem of how it's being consumed, but it's also the fact that it's a very sensible crop that only grows in a particular region of the world, and climate change, it's putting its future at risk. So as temperatures are getting hotter and as rain is getting crazy, we're seeing places with floods, places with droughts, the future or our capacity to produce coffee is decreasing significantly. So our approach is, how do we make sure that we have coffee for a long time and that in the way that we make it is better for the environment? So we are recreating the flavors, the aromas, and the effects of coffee with a fraction of the environmental footprint. We're looking to reduce around 90% of both the water use and the carbon emissions of your daily cup of coffee.
I mean, I'm clapping for that. I think something that we spoke about too is your background, working with entrepreneurs. I have a similar background in Africa, and I'm really curious as to how you're also thinking about the farmers and the supply chain. I think that we don't realize what goes into making a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and a lot of coffee is produced by smallholder farmers around the world. There is also large productions of coffee, especially when we look at things like instant coffee or low quality coffee. So the first question that we always get is, what about the coffee farmers? And because I come from Costa Rica, for me, it's not just farmers, it's people that, have a face, have a name, and we know where their livelihood comes from. So our question is, how do we help them transition into a climate resilient future? Because the truth is, coffee farmers are facing problems with climate change every single day. They're seeing their yield go down, they're seeing their quality go down, and they're being squeezed by the prices in the market. Coffee is the most expensive it's been in the last 10 years, and coffee farmers are getting less. So you might be paying $5, $6 for a cup of coffee in Austin, but they're still getting, in many cases, less than $1 per cup. So in our thought process is, we need to help them transition into other crops or other alternatives that are gonna be better for them, better for the planet. And we're working on initiatives that are built into our business model because we want to create coffee. I obviously love coffee and I drink a lot of it. I also recognize that we're going to keep drinking and consuming coffee for a long time. So we want it to be in a way that's friendly for the environment, but we don't want to leave anybody behind. So one of the big questions that we're trying to answer at Compound Foods is, how do we bake that into our model and how do we help them and bring them along our journey so that they can have even better lives that they have today, and they can use their lands for products that maybe they can eat or our local communities can eat, versus we have to export them to other places around the world.
I mean, we're here today talking about innovations around the hunger space, and it is amazing how these 4 women are thinking about their role in that, from starting businesses to leading entire multinational companies around this work. I think going back to you, Denise, it would be great to hear a little bit more about the accelerator work that you're doing with some of these other entrepreneurs around the country on this work, because I want this room to know that there are people who are innovating so quickly in this space, and we just need to give them our time, our partnerships, our connections, funding. So speak a little bit to the ecosystem around that, please.
Sure, would love to. So that, I think you're speaking to our foundation's innovation fund. So again, this was part of my role, is to help build a more sustainable and equitable food system globally, because even though we're a US retailer, we do have a global supply chain. So we actually have a whole initiative with Fair Trade on sustainable coffee, which is near and dear to my heart. But we also recognize, so we have, as a business, we have certain things we need to do to drive the change that we can in the areas that we can influence. And then we also have a philanthropic portfolio of work, which is really exciting. So There are places maybe where people have great ideas but need funding to get started, or they might need funding to scale. So we are also very involved through our innovation fund. We've had 2 open calls for proposals for innovation and innovative solutions. The first one we focused on food waste reduction and prevention solutions, and we had 6 grantees in that round. And then the second round we just did last year in 2021, and we committed $2.5 million and ended up with 10 portfolio companies with amazing ideas. So again, it's been a really rewarding, and part of what makes our jobs dream jobs is that we get to work with people who are new and young and have really innovative ideas, and we can help them get started. And 3 of those 10 companies, by the way, it wasn't the purpose of the Innovation Fund round, 3 of them are now on our shelves, which is really exciting. So they were able, and part of our goal is to provide that catalytic capital that then helps them get more money to do more. So sometimes being part of our Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation's cohort gives them a little bit of validation so they can go raise a lot more money beyond that. So that's exciting to see too. We love that.
And we had some of those conversations behind the scenes when we were powwowing. And I see Michelle being like, yes. Speak a little bit about the idea that I think partnership might come off this panel around helping big businesses with their waste. You would speak about it better than me. Just jump right in.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were kind of teeing up the question, it made me think one of the beauties of being all of us here together is that we can have this kind of cross-pollination of ideas where you might be a big company and you have waste, whether it's solid or water. You might also have some net zero commitments. Maybe you might be sparked by the idea that if you give away your waste, you can get to your net zero without having to invest capital in anything that's big or capturing, gas or anything like that, like easy cherry picking. Wait, what is it? The lowest hanging fruit?
Yes, yes. For problem solving for big companies.
And it's something that big companies have to pay for waste management. But if you're maybe a more agile, smaller startup, this is where partnerships can be really beneficial because you're like, wait, I want your waste. It helps reduce my cost by 60%. Let's go. And that's a perfect ecosystem to be really circular.
Well, and we love that some of what traditionally are waste streams can actually add value.
Yes.
So the goal is really not truly charitable. The goal is for companies like ours to find creative ways to drive revenue and value from things that we hadn't thought of before. So that is really what will unlock a richer future for all of us, and be able to provide jobs and economic growth and revenue for the community. So,
It is not charity. This is a panel of people who are making money off of making the world a better place. That is very important because if we're thinking about the new guard, back to you, Jasmine, we're thinking about how we are actually innovating our systems. Maybe give a little bit more of the behind the scenes of what creating this logistical problem solve of Goodr has been like.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's definitely been great. I think we focused on what wasn't focused on. So when I thought to expand our nonprofit network, for example, I began to work with nonprofits and people like me that are feeding on the streets, really grassroots, that maybe don't have the building or the money for commercial equipment and storage. And what we started to think about is how can we actually match food with them in real time? We also focus on prepared foods. I believe that in this country, there's a big difference between access to food and access to meals. And what a lot of times food banks and food pantries do, they create this vicious cycle that keeps people that are poor actually dependent on food banks and food pantries because they're giving them food that doesn't marry together. They're giving them peanut butter, no bread, no jelly. They're giving them spaghetti noodles, no sauce, no meat. They are giving them, just random things. And what we focus on is giving people meals. We want to give people actual food. And so I started first focusing with prepared food at Goodr. That was our big focus, and one of our biggest kind of key customers was the Atlanta airport. So the largest, most efficient, most busiest airport in the country, 150 restaurants, and every single night we get all of the food. And if you guys think through, these are the salads, those little, salads, fruit cups, things like that go to waste every 12 hours by FAA regulation. That is actually really good. And I've seen our team capture that food. I've seen it go to a shelter. I've seen people that were in the Georgia Workforce Development Program going to work, getting that and having lunch. And a lot of times we don't think through what not having to pay for one lunch for someone who still is living in this country making $8 an hour means. That is a lot. That's literally an hour's worth of work that they're giving up. And that's if they could go to like a Wendy's that doesn't even have the 4 for $4 anymore. I mean, that's kind of like letting you guys know how inflation is. But that level of getting people access to food. So we thought about that from the nonprofit space. We thought about the kind of food that we felt was being left out. We thought, yeah, shelf-stable stuff like, grocers, they have that. That's getting donated. Produce is starting to get donated. What's happening with these rotisserie chickens that every grocer and every place is making? What's happening with that stuff? And so that's where we focused on. And then we started to think we don't want to build our own logistics company. We should focus and partner with people that are already doing the work. And we started to forge those relationships. And then lastly, we started to speak with waste companies because we were saying, we see ourselves as a sustainable waste company. You guys are getting paid by these companies that are wasting all this food, and you're just taking it to your landfill. We can help you at least get this food. We wanted to control the food, and now those conversations have turned into really big opportunities. Thankfully, because legislation is being introduced in a lot of different states that is now saying, wait, we're gonna fine you if you throw away perfectly good food. And this is something that has been existing in countries like France, Italy, and Denmark for many years. It's finally starting to come to the U.S., while not as a whole country, but by cities. And that's really helping kind of power what we do. More so than anything, Nancy, it's about dignity. And that's the biggest piece that I think has been missing for a long time in this puzzle. Too often people thought we're donating, we have this partner, we're checking the box. We've got to uncheck the box and make sure we're checking on people and that we're giving them everything that they need. And that's what we focus on at Goodr.
Yes, I'm tweeting that. You bring up a great point, and I'm really happy you did, because the Healthy Living Coalition, which you need to join and be a part of and help us think about these issues better, is we worked actually very closely with Food Tank, so we're excited to partner with them on this too, is helping to amend legislation right now here in the U.S. from the Bill Emerson Act that is, the way it's written, it's just language. And as someone who works in communications on a regular basis, the narrative we use matters. And the way that the legislation is written today makes it very scary and liable for companies and events to be donating food. And instead, we are, like at South by, going to have a lot of excess food that gets thrown away. So we have helped reintroduce the bill.
I think we're doing that. Is that with Weight Watchers?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're part of that. Yeah, so we're already
we're all
there.
change makers, and
someone else on my team is handling it, but I'm pretty sure I've heard this.
Okay,
I've heard
good.
this before. Yeah.
And there's 40,000 citizens that have signed. So I will put the petition up today on my social media so you guys can sign. And I think that we have an obligation to demand that here in America, we are curbing food waste and not throwing away perfectly good food. So, okay, great.
Yeah, and I would say too, as a big company that has a lot of food, it's really hard. Prepared foods are the hardest ones for us to donate, because I will tell you, because I manage the ESG portfolio for Kroger, food safety is absolutely our #1 priority. So it's often a very complicated conversation about what can be donated and how. So we're learning from others who have started doing a lot more prepared foods than we have been comfortable with yet. But we are kind of unlocking new categories. I would say every few months we add things to that prepared foods donation list, but it's been a really difficult challenge for us.
Yeah. And I think we have a couple just quick call to actions that we want to leave you guys with before we go. I do think that something else that we spoke about that's really important to think about is, again, back to language. We talked about food waste, food surplus. We also were talking about even wastewater, sugar water, how you're positioning your products, but also just thinking about what you can do at home. So I'd love if you guys would all give a call to action. I'm making you sign a petition, so.
my call to action is if you know anybody that has wastewater, let me know. Food wastewater. And passing it over to you.
So mine would be like pay attention when you shop. Even as we're all customers, we're all in stores or we're ordering online. Look and buy more sustainable products. Look for certifications. Look for the standards that align with your own personal values and buy those items. Because that's what will keep the products on our shelves. That's what will get the new products to our shelves. We need our customers to actually engage, buy, enjoy, and then buy again. And that's how we change the shelf space that you see when you walk into our stores. And then also look at your own food waste at home. So we've heard during the pandemic that a lot of our customers are cooking more meals at home, which we love, but they're also noticing that they are wasting food more than they ever noticed before, and they're noticing the packaging and excess packaging. So just pay attention when you're cooking at home, but then also shop in ways that align with your values too.
Definitely. I just would love for anyone that's interested to please connect with us. We're Goodr, Goodr.co is our website, and we're Goodr Co across all of the networks. My call to you guys is to adopt a senior. I think that's really important. So many seniors, as I said, are really, really struggling. So if you do have that excess food, consider cooking an extra meal and maybe taking it to a senior in a local community center or however. But, call the Office of Aging in your area and see if there's a way that you could do that. Order them something on DoorDash as well, drop something off, but that's what I would leave with everybody, because I think that's the part of hunger a lot of people don't talk about. We talk about kids a lot, and rightfully, I'm a mom, of course, I want kids to eat, but our seniors are really struggling.
For sure. I would say we are getting our ducks in a row to launch, so if you have a coffee shop or a restaurant and are interested in having beanless coffee. And then the second part is around regenerative agriculture. So if you know initiatives, not-for-profits that are working on help the transition into regenerative agriculture, we definitely want to chat as well.
Yes, quick.
One last thing is if there's a composting facility nearby, consider trying to make that small change in your life. If you have food waste, don't throw it in the trash, compost it. It is 86 times better than throwing it in the trash from a carbon emission standpoint.
Let's give them a round of applause.